Hey, I'm Sven Masterson, one of the co-founders and mentors in the Mentoring Men community. And in this video, I want to talk to you about what it means to save yourself. Now, when I say that, I'm talking to a man who has gotten enough familiarity with men's work and his own journey that he's come to a conclusion that he has to save himself before he saves her. But right away, I want to address this issue of saving her. You see, a lot of men, when they hear the terrible words, I love you, but I'm not in love with you, I need space, I want a separation, I want a divorce, they conclude there's something wrong with her. And man, I understand why you would conclude this. I understand why you feel the way that you feel. You got married expecting life to go a certain way, and today it's not going that way. And when you think about why, what happened, you tend to think, oh, there's something wrong. She's gone sideways. She's having a midlife crisis. She's having this, she's having that, she's having this, she's having that. It's kind of a universal phenomenon generally, unless a man is purposely working to erode his relationship, that he interprets these moments as something that is going on in her. Now, I'm not suggesting that's not true, just that it's a wrong, and well, it's not wrong, but it's an ineffective and unhelpful focus to focus on trying to save her, because that's to judge that what she's feeling right now is invalid and is wrong. And experience helping men all over the world to get through these challenges, one thing I can tell you rather repeatedly is that men that are judging the experience and perspective their wives are having in this moment generally push them away. So I'm not saying it's bad to have an opinion about what's going on with your wife and to have some speculation even about why that might be. But the moment you believe that she should be somebody or doing something different than she is right now is the moment you step into judging her. And you have to decide, am I her lover and spouse, the person who has agreed to cherish her and to hold her in sickness and in death, or am I her judge? And it's very common, the men we talk to, that they move into this place very subtly of judging her. Now again, there's a difference between having an opinion about what she's doing and judging that who and what she's experienced right now is bad or wrong. Now, again, I realize this is complex. Women are sometimes having affairs, they're cheating, they're breaking up a family. I know, I get it. I know all those things are quote unquote bad things. But to just sit there in the place of judging her that she should be doing something different is to move yourself away from a place where you can be empathetic and curious and compassionate and seek to find out why. And instead bypasses all that stuff and immediately jumps into she should be different. And when you have that energy of she should be different, you tend to put yourself in a hero or a rescuer role. Now this is something men easily fall into because we have this innate desire to be heroes. We start doing this as little boys, right? We dress up as heroes. We're drawn to hero narratives. And I'm going to suggest in a minute that there's a reason for that. But the person you are intended to be a hero to is not your wife. It's yourself. And so the very first thing I want you to understand if you're watching this video is that you are not your wife's hero. You might do heroic things in ways that she sees as heroic, but the moment you believe that you're her hero is the moment you actually support her being a victim. And it's not a helpful narrative to live in. It's not helpful to live in a long-term relationship where you are the hero and the woman is a victim, because it makes you responsible for all kinds of things about her emotional well-being and personhood that you shouldn't own in anyone's life but your own. Now, let's go back for a minute and talk about how do you rescue you, because this is important, right? What you need to do when your relationship is falling apart and it looks like your wife is heading in a different way is not badger her, chase her, or try to rescue her. You must focus on rescuing you. And you're going to be like, yeah, but I'm not the one who's doing this. I'm not the one who's doing that. I get it. but you have to be your absolute strongest person. You have to be a man who's living his absolute best. Experience tells us, and this is not universally true, but often true, that men who have heard, I need space, I want a separation, I want a divorce, I love you but I'm not in love with you, or men that are being cheated on, are generally men who are not living their best. I'm not saying it never happens. I'm just saying that generally speaking, those men are men that do not know how to live in a state of constant, perpetual well-being that is not tied to what their spouse is doing, thinking, saying, not doing, not saying, etc. And so the work we help men with is to start the journey of becoming their best selves. And men, when they reach out to us in relationship despair, are always looking for the absolute fastest fix to that possible. And so they might even ask in one question, how do I improve myself? That's not something we can answer in one question, in one video. In fact, it takes us 6 months to lead a man through that transformative process. And you might be thinking, 6 months, that's ridiculous. There's this internet celebrity or this YouTube person who says 14 days or your money back, right? That's just marketing stuff. That's sales funnels, that's gimmick, that's techniques. We could probably guide you to do something that will make your relationship change in some way in 14 days, but that's not the point. We're not after just a quick fix to big problems. We're after the total transformation of men, and we're good at it. But that process is a process that takes time. And it doesn't just take time, it takes a community. And this is what I really want to get to in this video, because this is the missing thing in so much men's work. We have today this idea as humans that we just need more information, right? And so we're falling prey to all kinds of men's work and personal development approaches that are really just information driven. Here, buy my ebook for $9.99 or $19.99 or $99.99, right? Why is it always 99 stuff, by the way? And so we have this gimmicky thing where, hey, you just need this secret information. And if you had this secret information, your entire life would turn around. We found that to be complete rubbish. Instead, what we find is transformation happens by being around other people who enhance, broaden, and contribute towards a healthier perspective than you have in your isolation. And so the number one ingredient we find in the transformation process for men is to be around other men who are experiencing or have experienced transformation. And so the secret ingredient, which is not so secret in our process, is that our transformation mentoring happens in a group setting. It happens with other men who are being insanely vulnerable, deep, real. They're sharing their insides, what's going on, and what they're finding is not a bunch of blank stares. They're not finding men who don't accept them. They're finding depth. They're finding freedom. They're finding connection. They're finding an enlivened perspective that starts to change how they show up in their day-to-day life. Now, we do this over 6 months because of some aspects of cognitive and behavioral science that talk about you need time. You need time behind the wheel. You need time for the reps to do their work in your heart and in your mind. And you need time for these things to sink in from being just truth that you memorize the night before an exam, which is how a lot of men approach fixing their marriage, like cramming for a college exam. And it needs to become real. It needs to become practiced. It becomes ingrained. It's like learning to drive or throw a ball. You need a lot of reps practicing a new concept, a new idea, before it becomes something that is easy. And we find in our process with men, which is not just information, but it's transformation in the context of a community, in the context of connection, in the context of brotherhood that's not judgmental, that men change. And they don't just change for a little bit. They don't just change enough to get their wife to notice and back off divorce. They change in profoundly deep ways that impact their lives. And that is a process that takes time. And so if you're looking for how do you become your wife's hero, you've got to start by your own transformation. Because what that means is you learn to be the hero in your own life. Hero from what, Sven? Right? What do you need to rescue yourself from? Well, our transformation process focuses on what we call the pillars of suffering. Those are shame, fear, anxiety, and insecurity. Also, some peripheral ideas like uncertainty, like a sense of dread, right? It shows up in people's lives differently, but those four pillars are the main ones: shame, fear, anxiety, and insecurity. Everywhere a man has those, he will create dependency in his life on other people. The main place men do this who are married is in their spouse. They create all kinds of unhealthy dependency on their spouses for things like their sense of value, their sense of worth, their sense of significance, their sense of well-being and being okay, their sense of direction, their mission, their purpose. And so they farm out all these parts of themselves to their spouse, and then they spend a considerable, inordinate amount of their time and energy focusing on the person who they farmed that out to, her. And so they start watching with an anxious kind of energy, a critiquing, judging energy, an irritated energy. How's she doing with this? She's not doing this enough. If she would sit with me more, if she'd put her phone away, if she'd touch me more, if she'd have sex with me more. And so it just becomes this endless thing in a man's life where he is trying to kind of combat his internal state by going to the people that he's entrusted to take care of that state, and he generally will not like how they're handling that. Now, the moment that person that he has entrusted with his sense of well-being, some part of his well-being, says, I need space, I love you, but I'm not in love with you, I want a divorce, I want a separation, I've been seeing someone else, I'm having an affair, all this stuff, that man's world starts to fall apart. And it fell apart and is falling apart because he doesn't own a significant amount of his life. And so the transformation process we focus on is about self-rescue. It's about going and locating all of those areas of your life that you don't own. And we have very easy to follow, established ways of helping you identify where in your life you don't own your life. And when you work through that, it's going to take time. You're going to find all kinds of ways where you've given your power and agency away as a man, where you're not self-reliant, but you're dependent on other people. And these things in your life, in some way, have probably contributed towards your relationship demise. And so to rescue yourself, to be your own hero, you need to take that back. And that process is a process. And anybody who promises you can do it in 14 days or 9 days or 30 days is just a marketing and sales genius, but not probably somebody who's going to lead you through a transformative process. That process, when you get a hold of it, starts to change your life. And change in humans is not very quick. We know this from neuroscience, right? It takes, on average, just for the neurons in your head to start kind of getting solidified, at least 9 weeks, just 9 weeks to build a little neural pathway and start to make it permanent. That's just to start it. And then every time you use it, we know for this process in neuroscience called myelination, that you get better and better and more efficient at being a new way. And so we understand this in our community, and we built our process around evidence-based things that take time, that are not woo-woo-y, they're not gimmick. They're based on an understanding of how humans work, how human brains work, how human behavior works. And we find that in 6 months of this, it is a good kind of solid time frame for a lot of men to get kind of reoriented and to start being the hero in their own life. Now, a wonderful thing happens when you're a hero in your own life is if your life had a resume, you add to your resume, hero. I became my own hero. And that becomes a qualification. And what does it become a qualification for? It becomes a qualification of sharing that experience with other people in your life. Not by being their hero, but by being a guide, being a person that they can trust, who they can look to and see, wow, he did it. How did he do it? And so here too, we don't rescue one another. We show one another how we were the heroes in our own lives. That's exactly what mentoring is, by the way. We're not rescuing anyone. as mentors. We're not playing the hero role. We're playing the guide role. We're simply men around the world who have learned through very hard times to rescue ourselves from some of the same issues and then turned around and said, brother, here's how we did it. That's why we don't have these marketing plans and sales funnels and $9.99 ebooks that you can download right now, right? Because that's not what it's about. It's about a bunch of guys saying, look, this is how we got through the hardest times in our life, and this is what we can share with you. And we find when we do that, we're acting as guides. Now, in our marriage, this does a beautiful thing if you're married or in a long-term relationship. When you have demonstrated a proficiency at leading yourself out of suffering, out of shame, fear, anxiety, insecurity, other people will look to you and say, hey, how'd you do that? And that's when you can say, here's what I did. Now, when you have a partner in your life who is struggling with this way, who might really be having a lot of turmoil in her life, who might be having what we call a nervous breakdown, or might be really suffering under the weight of being a mother, or feeling just the pain that comes with the human experience, it is of tremendous benefit to have in her life someone who's been there, someone who knows how to navigate those hard spaces, who's not going to do the work for her and deprive her of actually her own human experience of learning to trust herself and her own leadership of self, but who can provide pointers, who can say, this is what I did, and who can encourage her along the way. Now, that creates a whole new level of intimacy and vulnerability and connection in a relationship like marriage. Because what is gone is the suffering man. What is gone is the man who's judging and who has this vile contempt for the woman in his life because she's not meeting his dependency-based neediness. And instead, what's there is a man who's feeling whole in himself without her providing that sense of wholeness to him. A man who knows how to be okay. A man who is emotionally resilient. A man who knows how to stand in the presence of a woman no matter what her emotions are doing and being, and he just knows how to keep calm and cool because he knows he's okay. That man begins to create a new dynamic in his relationship. And it's a dynamic that's, to be frank, it's attractive. It's something that is very appealing to the woman in his life, and it oftentimes becomes the basis for healing and restoring that relationship. But everything I just told you about, that takes time. And so if you're in this mode of, I've got to figure out how to fix my wife, you're not headed at all in the right direction. In fact, you're headed in a very dangerous direction because you're not headed in a change in you, and you're headed in a focus, and it's a dependency-based focus on what does she do next? What's going to happen next? And the more you chase that, the more energy you put into what your wife or partner needs to do for you to be okay, the worse things will get for you. So I want to encourage you instead to make this journey about you, specifically learning how to be the hero in your own life, to rescue yourself from the places you're experiencing shame, fear, anxiety, and insecurity. If you don't know how to do that, and I would expect that you don't because it does seem to be rather unusual these days, I would invite you to reach out to us. We are very good at it. Again, not good at rescuing you or for you, but showing you how to do it for yourself. I want you to reach out and talk to us. You'll see a link in the description below where you can find out more about what we do, our community. You can click a link and just explore, or you can click another link and you can request a session with myself or one of our other mentors, a one-on-one session. We're going to talk to you about your life, about what's going on. There's no sales pitch. There's no ebook we're going to sell you. We're not going to sell you a magic solution that works in 14 days and your money back. We're going to talk to you about this 6 months process, or actually probably not much about the process, but what you need, what's going on and why you're experiencing what you're experiencing and how to be free of it. And you could do all that. You could begin all of that by just clicking that link below. It's a simple process. It takes about 6 or 7 minutes to fill out our session request. You'll get a real live response from someone like me who will set up that time with you, get on that Zoom call with you, and we go from there. And so I hope you'll take advantage of that. I hope if you're looking for a magic bullet, that you cool your heels a little bit and you consider the long game. Consider that it's going to take time to get where you want to go, just like it took lots of time to get you where you are now. And with that, I wish you a good day. Hope to talk to you soon. Take care.